guys. Happy after Valentine's Day. So glad to have you here for another episode of Evolve. I am your host, Monette Brann-Natta. We have been celebrating love yesterday, and for me all month, I wanted to really celebrate the idea of love in all of its forms all month. And I'm really excited about this show today for that reason, because today we're going to get into eros, that kind of heady, lusty love, that dating love, that love you feel when you're first initially getting into something. And we have a guest today that I think is going to help us understand a little bit of what his experience was like in that, but also about contrast and creation. My guest today is a software engineer, and in that capacity, he is a linear thinker. But what I found really fascinating about Scott is that he has an incredibly high level of emotional intelligence. He gets the nature of people, and he's emotionally tapped in, and he has a keen understanding about creating and building things. And that is what we're going to talk about today. The creating and building that Scott had to do in order to inhabit his new life. Over the past few weeks, we've talked about the Greek origins of the word love. So far, philousia, the love of self, pragma last week, long-standing love, and this week, we're going to dive into eros. And it is very appropriate to say dive, because when eros comes into your life, that is your natural inclination. You want to dive, because eros is all encompassing, and it's heady, and it's a passionate, lusty drive that helps usher you into the falling in love stage, different from pragma last week, which is the standing in love stage. But before we get into eros, we have to energetically send out rockets of desire to attract the thing that we are wanting. Now, Scott did this by experiencing contrast. Dun, dun, dun. What is contrast? Can be kind of heavy in our time and space reality. Contrast is how we create. Sometimes experiencing a thing that doesn't feel good helps you to change your vibration and frequency to get into a place, a situation, a job, a relationship, a friendship that you do want. Today, Scott is going to walk us through the path that led him to experience eros, which ultimately led him to real love. So good to have you with us today, Scott. Hi. So good to have you here today. And I first wanted to just talk about your dating stuff, because I've really found you to be very helpful, and I've really found you to have great insight as you were going through that. For me, you were very helpful for me. So as you were getting into that, what made you want to get back into dating? And I want to just preface it by letting everybody know you were married previously. So what made you want to get back into that?
Well, I was in a long-term marriage, 18 years. It was not a good marriage. It was to somebody that was, emotionally abusive, was not a good match. Somebody I had met, early in life, tried to make things work, but sometimes, you stick around with the wrong person way too long, and that's what happened. Eventually, it ended in divorce. And I came out of that with very low self-esteem, because, it was an emotionally abusive relationship. That sort of wears on you, and you start to buy into the belief that, you're not worthy of love, and you're not somebody that, anybody would want. And that's where I was when I first started the idea of online dating. It was always hard for me to approach a woman without, a reason. Once I could talk to somebody, I was fine. It's very hard to approach somebody.
Right.
And I started to look into, okay, maybe I'll start online dating. And I really didn't believe that I would have a very easy time finding anybody who would even want to go on a date with me. I literally called myself an undateable troll to friends of mine.
And that was from the trauma of the previous marriage?
It really was. It was
right.
From the trauma of that and going through, and I went through a pretty bitter, difficult divorce. and it didn't leave me in a good state. And so I started to date online and discovered pretty quickly that I was wrong. There's a good quote from my mom who said, "Hey, you're in your 40s, but you've got a job, a car, and all your teeth. You're a catch."
That's about right.
And trying to prop me up a little bit, and then I found out that it was pretty easy to get dates in my particular situation. I'm not Brad Pitt, but I'm not a bad looking guy either, and I can talk, and it was actually pretty easy, and so I started dating, and I went pretty wild. I was a kid in a candy shop for a little while there.
Okay.
Where I was going on multiple dates in a weekend, sometimes in the same day. It was pretty wild because I had not had any sort of positive reaction towards me, and and I should mention it was a sexless marriage, and for the last number of years.
Oh.
And suddenly there's all these women that want to sleep with me, and boy, that was a lot of fun for a while.
For a while. Okay.
But eventually, after getting that out of my system, it started to dawn on me that, that really wasn't fulfilling. And really at my core, I'm a serial monogamist. I just want to be with one person. If that doesn't work out, fine, move on, try to find. I was searching for the right person.
Okay.
And so I stopped dating, around like that, and I wanted to get a little bit more.
So you were feeling like you wanted some more commitment. Was there anybody that you felt serious about after you had your kid in the candy shop experience? Did you feel?
Yeah. So I was dating a girl at a time, and I went out with her a number of times, and at one point a different girl had contacted me for a date, and then I went, well, wait a minute, if I go out with this person, then I can't go out with the first one. And then that's when I realized, okay, well, then maybe, this is the point where I need to, stop this dating around. So I was kind of dipping a toe in the water there of having a relationship again and what that was like, And so we dated for, a number of months. I think maybe about a half a year.
Okay.
And it was good. She was very sweet and very, very, very kind and very sweet. There wasn't a lot of meat really there yet. It wasn't really the right relationship, and I had a little bit of lingering doubt as to how the long-term viability was going to be. But at the same time, it was, I was, starting to be a little bit more comfortable. That relationship ended in a very unusual way. She ended up having a heart attack. She was only in her 40s.
Oh, my goodness.
But had some heart problems that I didn't even know about until afterwards when her daughters told me,
right.
What was going on. But it happened in front of me.
She had a heart attack in front of you?
Yeah, had a heart attack in front of me, was dancing, having a good time, and I thought she was goofing around laying out, and I ended up calling, the ambulance. And
wow.
Yeah, it was an experience I wouldn't wish on anyone.
Okay.
And so that stopped my dating for a while there.
Yeah, I can imagine. You definitely wanted to insulate your heart.
Yeah, and so, just starting to put that, it's like a turtle poking out of its shell, and all of a sudden it gets scared and pops right back in.
Right.
So, during that time, I had a lot of time to think, and, I realized I did like being in a relationship. I'm happier with somebody to share my life with, and I'm happy, you need to learn how to be happy by yourself, but truly, I was able to live on my own, but I know that I like to be with somebody. And I knew I was ready for a more serious relationship. So when I started online dating again, it was less about trying to find somebody to go out with, and it was, okay, I'm looking for a wife. This is what I want. I'm looking for a real relationship.
Okay, so I want to stop you there real quick, because I just want to just point this out to the listeners that Scott set his intention. So you went from a nebulous reason for dating, just like I'm out here and whatever comes my way, good, that good for me or good for them, into shifting into real intention about I'm looking for a life partner. That's what I'm here to do. So I just, I think that that's important because sometimes we're always saying we want someone in our life, but we're not setting an intention. And so what Scott ends up attracting is exactly that. But I didn't know that about you, Scott, that you would set that intention. I just thought it was through the going through the motions of dating that you found someone. But I should know better because anytime we're attracting something, we're usually setting out our intention. So that's very interesting. So I want to ask you this before we get into finding someone. What are some of the differences that you've noticed with online versus traditional dating?
Well, I actually like talking about this subject because it's difficult for a lot of guys to just walk up to a girl and ask for a date. You don't know how that's going to be receptive, or if they're going to be receptive. The girl might be aggressive. There's always the joke where the guy, approaches a girl in a store, asks a question, and she says, "I have a boyfriend." Congratulations! I'm happy you have a boyfriend. I just wanted to know if I could reach behind you, and so it's very difficult for guys to make that approach. And I always try to tell women, try to make it a little easier. If you see a guy you think might be interested, maybe make that a little bit easier on him to approach you. And I'm already particularly nervous about stuff like that. Now, online dating is completely different. Okay? You put your profile out there, you put some words about yourself, you get to look at other people, and if you connect with somebody online like that, you know that they've at least looked at your picture.
Right.
And they've at least read what you wrote.
Yes.
And they're still interested.
They're still interested, yes.
Yeah, and so okay, so that cuts through a lot of the uncertainty. So what I decided to do is, when I was on a couple of dating sites, and I wrote a very, very accurate, brutally honest essay.
An essay? An essay, Scott?
It could only be described as an essay.
Okay.
Because I wanted the person to know exactly who I was and exactly what I was looking for. So I put my, a reasonably accurate picture up there, very accurate words, and, see what happens. And I figured I probably got less dates than, a lot of people tend to put some spin on it.
Right.
And, they're just trying to attract the date. On the idea, well, if I could just get on the date, then they'll know me. Oh, I didn't want that. I wanted the person to know what they were getting. And if it wasn't going to work out, I'd rather not go on the date to begin with. So if that meant I had fewer dates, but those were better quality dates, or more chance of it leading to a relationship, to me that seemed more important. And so that's what I did. And that's how I met my wife. I was looking online, and she had a profile, and she's very pretty. And I was still struggling with some self-esteem problems, and I wasn't sure if I was really in her league. And I kept looking and trying to work up some courage to contact her. And what I didn't realize was that the website let her know every time someone looked at her profile.
So she sees you like cyber stalking her on the low. She can see that.
So and so she's like, well, why does this guy keep looking at me? So she clicked on my profile, and then she saw this big wall of text, and
the essay. The essay. Yeah, okay.
And so, and this is the way she always tells the story. She goes, I looked at it, and I figured, wow, this guy is a lot. He's either full of shit or he has something to say. And,
something to say.
And then she kept reading it, and she says, in her words, the more I read it, the more I felt like I was reading about myself.
Huh.
And she really got very interested. And then so she contacted me to ask, why haven't you, I see you're looking at me. Why haven't you contacted me? And then I was honest. I said, wasn't sure, you'd be interested. But if you're interested, let's go on a date. And we did. And we went on a date, and the date was wonderful. We didn't want it to end. We found, excuses to continue it and continue.